I guess as a professional, I've been a managing director with Desjardins for the last 5 years, and I've been in the financial industry for the last 22 years. Before that, I served as a managing director with Zellers in the West Coast. I was born in Halifax, raised, went to St. Mary's, as did our guest, who will be more formally introduced later. And I have a long-time interest in children. And I was past president of the Children's Aid Society, and I was founder and past president of the Cobequid Children's First Foundation. And currently I'm still involved with the Christmas Index, which I'll talk about just as briefly a little bit later on, as most of our Rotarians here in the room do participate. So that's Larry. Do we have an attendance report?
68%.
Pretty common number.
And now we're going to have fun finds. Are we ready, David?
Sure. Well, you all know we got a brand new civic center coming, and we got a fabulous hockey team in town. Unfortunately, the attendance is kind of mediocre. So if you haven't been to a Bearcat game this year, ever.
Why is it so awesome?
If you don't like Mike's deals, anybody else can do this.
So what do you do?
The job is open. It's all for a good cause, don't forget.
No.
You haven't been to a Bearcat game?
No, you guys are exempt. You guys are stands.
Oh,
No, that's good.
well, I'm not exempt.
You're a guest. I should have said you were wearing a blue shirt. Unless you haven't been there yet. No wonder they're winning.
So at this time, we're also looking at contributions to the Happy Mug. Is there any happy Rotarians in the room today? Jim?
Hold on, the guest.
I'm sure I'm only one of many, but on Saturday last, I had the opportunity to go to Zone 24 district meeting on Rotary success. And this is the second time I've been to one. And so there were Rotarians from all over the region, mainly New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. There were a number of us there. And very, very interesting and inspirational speeches by a couple of RI directors about happenings in Rotary International. It kind of reminds you why you're a Rotarian. But the best part of the day is at the end of the day they have a draw. And the draw was for a donated Paul Harris Fellowship. And you can guess who won it. So I'm very happy.
Adjust the microphone to my that I'm vertically challenged, so I'm happy today to speak to you on behalf of Linda Spears. You may recall that I brought her here some months ago. She's a lady with a cane. She's only partially sighted. In fact, her sight is becoming worse all the time. She was planning to come here with me today, but she's too ill because she has other medical problems. So I'm making the announcement on her behalf. First of all, Dining in the Dark, which was mentioned at the earlier meeting, is now taking place on November the 8th, starting at 6 o'clock. It's at the Best Western Glengarry. I think we know where that is. And accompanying this package, by the way, I'll put it on the table afterwards to allow you to see what's in here. There are 3 options where people can participate in this thing on behalf of the Canadian National Institute for the Blind. First of all, for companies, there are sponsorships which are possible, ranging at the low end from silver at $500 through gold at $1,000 and platinum at $1,500. Then a second option is the contribution to a silent auction, which would be the donation of articles. So for example, Alan Stilleboy, the artist, has agreed to contribute a piece of art for the silent auction. something that I missed. Individual tickets may be purchased for $50 piece, and you receive an income tax receipt for a portion of that. And that looks at, after all, the alternatives. As I say, I'll place this on the table. If you wish to purchase a ticket today, I can give you a temporary receipt acknowledging your purchase, because I brought a receipt book with me, and I'll give those to Linda, and she can issue a proper receipt to you later. Thank you very much.
I'm happy today, my wife Val was elected president of Nova Scotia Golf Association over the weekend. She's been involved at the executive level for 3 or 4 years, and this formally recognizes that golf is more important than me in her life.
I could be happy for all kinds of reasons, but I told you a few weeks ago that Carol and I were going on a cruise to Italy, which we did. It was our 40th anniversary, a gift given to us by our children, and we had just a thoroughly wonderful time, I can tell you.
I'm extremely happy, as well as all of CEC soccer, boys soccer team, that they have made provincials. It's the 4th time in the history of the school that CEC has made provincials, and hopefully they'll go all the way.
Well, I'm doubly happy because my youngest child, who's almost 21 now, went through 2 surgeries over the weekend to replace the shunt in his body. And so far, things look really good. They're just waiting on an MRI. So.
I have something to contribute as well. The Christmas Index will be starting its fall campaign, and I know the vast majority of the Rotarians in the room participate in that. So I'll be seeing some of you individually over the next few days, and looking for your participation again this year. We service about 800 families, as you know, with the toys and or food baskets. So thank you very much. Well, we have a 50-50 draw now, apparently, and I'm going to ask our guest to draw a ticket. Right? Oh yeah, listen, I'll hang on to this for First 3 numbers, of course, are 44-5, and the last 3 numbers are 663. Hello, Kurt. What I'm supposed to do is put this someplace in the ticket. Have we made arrangements yet?
No, not yet.
I'll put it in the middle.
Nice
So there's $60 there, increased by today, Les.
That's right. You did that.
Thank you. Is there any reports on member health?
Yes. I got this from Ed McDonald. He's waylaid at an airport somewhere, something to do with weather and something to do with problems with the plane. But he wanted me to let you know that he heard from Richard Bonus, and Richard says in his email, can you tell them I'm a third of my way through scheduled treatments, going as planned, and I appreciate the encouraging messages I've received from Rotarians. Thanks from Richard.
Richard was vice president during my reign and my term tenure, and become president of the Rotary Club in 2000, 2001. So I've known Richard for quite a few years, and I wish him the best. The committee reports? Yes, Brian.
I'm the chairperson of the foundation committee here in our club, and I will tell you that November is actually foundation month. So you might say, well, why am I up here? Well, it's just to give you a little warm up and to kind of get you thinking about some things. This year we have a goal to contribute $6,200 to the Rotary Foundation, which, as most of you know, and maybe some of our new members don't, help to contribute to a lot of different projects around the world. And the largest one that we've contributed to so far is eradicating polio. So our goal is $6,200, and we base that on $100 per member. We call that every Rotarian every year giving $100 if they can. If you don't give it, the club gives it. And when the club gives it, that just has less money that they have to put into local projects. We have currently 8 members who contribute on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis. And they contribute a minimum of $10 or $15 a month, and it ends up that, you know, they get that sustaining every Rotarian every year designation, depending on what time they roll over their $100 in a year. So that's 8 out of, how many did I say? 62, right? Okay. So far this year, our annual fund contributions have been $322, and those have all been funded by the people who give on a monthly basis or quarterly basis. So if you don't do that, then you will know that you haven't given any money so far. So we're about $5,900 short. Now, I just wanted to, you know, we have Halloween coming up. And the estimated amount, and I'm going to ask you to guess on this one, the estimated amount that North Americans will spend on Halloween costumes for their pets. How much do you think that North Americans now, how much do you think they spend?
$370.
$370? I know you can see through that. It's actually $370 million. 370 million. This is for their pets, folks. It's not even for their kids. Okay? What's that? Rounding error, yeah. How much do you think, I'm not going to hold this one up unless you want to. How much do you think that people will spend on Halloween candy this year? How much? $1 billion. That's a good guess. It's twice as much. $1.9 billion. Now, I just want to bring that home a little bit. How many of you are intending on buying Halloween candy this year or costumes for your pet? Because if you are, you might want to reconsider that thought if you haven't already given to the Rotary Foundation. If you already have, then I encourage you, go out and buy the best costume you can for your dog. But if you haven't, then you just might want to think about it. Anyways.
What are they going to tell the kids when they come to the door?
Just do what I do, turn the lights off. I tell you, don't come to my place, okay? I don't participate. Anyways, folks, I'll bring you a few more tidbits of information starting next week, and you'll all have a chance to participate. And if anybody wants to sign up for the Rotary Foundation, automatic contribution, easy to do. I'll take care of it for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Speaking of how people spend money, 1 week from today, I'll be sitting in the Montreal airport wishing I was here, if the Cameroon visa comes through, which I think it will. So we're all set, we've got our tickets. This past week, I've been around looking at books to take, and it's limited what I can take. But speaking of dogs, I was at the Book Nook, and she brought a couple books over on pets. And I said, no, they eat dogs.
Yeah.
And they looked at a picture of a dog that is in our family, and they said, what's that for? So the culture is different and the needs are very different. Good news on the part of the money from the Rotary Club of Truro arrived in IDF's account about 3 weeks ago. Tenders were put out to carpenters, and in 2 weeks' time, bookshelves and desks will be built for the GSL Film School. And I will be helping there to look in the press bookstore, which is run by the Presbyterian Church. They've done a wonderful job of getting resources together for schools in the bookstore.
And that's probably where most of the books will be purchased with our money. The construction project, the money is ready to go from hand up. The information has gone from me and IDF to the Rotary Club, the Hand Up program, who sent it to the Rotary Club of Bethlehem, who will transfer now the money. And that will push the construction forward. So from here on, you hear by, I hope, you'll hear by email, and if I have trouble getting it through, I'll get Jim's help again. So anyway, there we are.
Stephen?
Right now, the Sunday.
Just a quick update on WILA for those who might be interested in the day. I do have enough Rotarians that have volunteered, so thank you very much for those who have did. And I just want to let you know what I kind of have planned for the day. The agenda is not completely finished, but I do have a couple of guest speakers. So I have Andrew Teddy from Toastmasters here in Truro is actually going to be coming and speaking to the group. I have Sean Evans from the Bearcats. He's coming to speak to the group on leadership as well and bringing the captain of his hockey team to talk as well. And Mike DeSaulniers, I believe, is part owner of Catch of the Bay, is that big lighthouse out by Masstown Market. And I heard his story at the Chamber of Commerce event, and I was completely enthralled with how he got started in that and what started him. So I thought, you know, it'd be a great speaker for the kids to listen to as well. He has a PowerPoint presentation that goes along with it. So just to let you know, it is on Friday of this week. It goes from 9 till 2. If at all you want to drop down just to see the day, if you haven't seen it or want to see the kids or see what the speeches are about, you're by more welcome than to just come in and attend or sit and listen to a couple of them. It's at the NSCC in the Cafeteria Salon C, which is at the back. It's kind of got a wall like this with a door that goes through it, so you can come in at any time during the day on Friday and sit and listen to the activities of the day. So I just open it up to everybody.
I have a question. If we attend another Rotarians function, can we get a makeup for that, Jim? Well, one of the Rotarians in the room has a son playing for the Bearcats, and if we attend a Bearcat game, would we get a makeup? You're nodding no, Jim. Well, it's worth the inquiry. I would like to have the Secretary's report, if we have the Secretary's report, Jim.
This one, he should be good. This one, he should be good.
Okay, good afternoon. Just have a couple of quick things. As I said last week, I'll do all the birthdays and anniversaries in the first Monday of the month. So next Monday, I'll do all the anniversaries, birthdays, and so on for the month of November. We have a letter from the Hospice Society. I'll just quickly read it. On behalf of the Colchester East Hants Hospice Society, I would like to express my sincere gratitude for the support of the Rotary Club of Truro towards our palliative care support program. Please know that this donation of $5,000 will help us tremendously in touching the lives of people in need in our community. Please call me at a number or there's an email address so we can discuss how the Rotary Club will be recognized for this generous support. So I guess I would pass it on to the publicity. Someone looks after publicity or that type of thing. Yeah, whoever that is, I'll pass that on to. Once again, thank you for your investment in the community organizations such as ours. We take a grassroots approach to strengthening our communities and supporting our residents. So that's the Hospice Society. Just an update on attendance. July and August, our attendance was under 70%, 69.43 and 69.13. But in September, it went up to a great number of 82.73%. So that was awesome for September. And I think that is it for my report. Oh, there's one other thing. I did get some information in on the Rotary Adventures and Citizenship Program to Ottawa, and I passed it on to Heather Ann Grant. She's chairs that part of the education committee this year. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. President Laurie.
Welcome to our guests today. Colleen. I called her Brenda when she came in. She didn't correct me. Welcome, Colleen Hinckley. And welcome to Jason Malone. Great to see you again this week. And Greg will be formally introducing you shortly. Welcome all our guests. I wanted to formally express our condolences to Lord McDougall on the passing of his son, Don. We're very sorry to hear that, and our thoughts and prayers are with you and your family. I wanted to highlight a donation that the club's received from CIBC, and this is through Jim Gould's doing through a program called the CIBC Employee as Ambassador Program. So a letter from Jim says, I'm pleased to inform you that CIBC has approved a contribution of $500 to the Rotary Club of Truro. Funding was awarded through this ambassador program, recognizing Jim's volunteer contribution. So we're very pleased to accept that, Jim, and thank you very much. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the website, but Lydia put an article on there about South Colchester Academy, one of the high schools in the region that has an Interact club, a junior Rotary club. And they're off to a roaring start. There's not a whole lot of them. CEC has about 30 plus members, and I think the South Colchester has 10, 8 to 10. But they're off to a busy start. They've decided that their fundraiser this year will be a program called Spread the Net. And you may have seen a story on Rick Mercer's show talking about Spread the Net. He was over in Africa and discovered that malaria is still a big problem in Africa. And something as simple as a bed net goes a long way to keeping people protected from mosquitoes. So this particular Interact Club that we support in Brookfield has raised enough for 11 nets already, and Lydia and Alan, in fact, will be sleeping under one when they head to the Cameroon next month. I'm pleased to say that I reached out to Ron Ross, and he's accepted the job of bulletin editor. Thank you, Ron. Just made such a lot of sense to me. He has a writing company, and he's a proficient writer, and it's great to have you on board, Ron, and I'm hoping Jim might give him a little tutorial. It's not complicated, and there'll be others that'll help you out as backups when you can't be here. So thank you so much. We have a board meeting scheduled for next week, a week from tomorrow, and it'll be somewhere at Dave's, maybe not at Dave's house, but
Oh, no, it'll be at Al Hollis' house.
at Al Hollis's. Al also offered up his new pad at, yeah, but, so, is that the house? Okay. In Onslow. And is it on our website? People can find out where the address is?
11 Pleasant View Drive.
Okay, 11 Pleasant View, so I'll get that out. Pleasant View. And I thought I'd end with an interesting fact about Rotary International. And I learned this at the Rotary Leadership Institute when I attended a couple of weeks ago. Rotary International is the only NGO, non-governmental organization, that has a seat at the United Nations. I thought that was pretty amazing. Great week to be a Rotarian, Jim.
At this time, I'd like to introduce our speaker. I've had a few minutes to chat with him, and I find him quite fascinating and very interesting to chat with. Thank you very much, Greg. Greg Kerwin comes to us from Moncton, New Brunswick, where he was born and raised. He attended St. Mary's University, a good university, I might add, from 1989, and he graduated with a BCom. He played football for the Smew Huskies. Did you win that year? Sort of. In 1992, to present, he has had multiple startups in the healthcare industry. He has worked in every facet of healthcare, from surgical, clinical, retail, consulting, and distribution. And currently owns Kerwin Health and Sports and Oh My Soul Footwear in Halifax. Both businesses are now over 15 years old. Founder and president and CEO of TrueLeaf, which is what he comes to speak to us today on, which creates plants and farm systems to grow food plants anywhere in the world. You partnered with Perennia, thank you, at the Nova Scotia Agricultural College, and currently has interest from supermarkets, Nutro, nutraceutical, that's a new word for me, thank you, nutraceutical companies, and disaster relief. He's married with 2 children and 2 daughters in Halifax. He's interested in travel, surfing, fishing, and good food. Welcome, Greg Curley.
Thank you, everybody, for your warm welcome. I got a chance to meet a few of you, and really admire the work you're doing here locally in the Rotary. Lori asked me to come and talk today, and I'm thrilled to have the chance to do that. I'm a reverse commuter, I call myself. I live in Halifax and mostly commute to Truro every day. I've been involved in lots of companies. Probably my 6th startup. Spent most of my adult professional career in healthcare, and learned a lot about healthcare. And so when I started TrueLeaf, why TrueLeaf? I have no background in growing anything. I don't know anything about agriculture, and if you saw what I tried to grow in my garden, you would realize maybe I did the wrong thing starting TrueLeaf. But what I realized spending 20 years in healthcare is that we're in deep trouble. And I thought, well, if we can grow plants and grow really good food and grow plants for medicines anywhere, then maybe that could be a solution. So what I learned in healthcare was, let me back up why TrueLeaf for a second, and why Truro. When I started this project 3.5 years ago, as my wife calls it, the plant project, God love her, she's been very patient as I tried to do this. I was actually looking at PEI and looking at an area where they would get what we were doing, and we joked internally that our nicknames were Too Early and Don't Fit. And you know, when you're starting a startup, it's hard. And in this case, this one was really hard, and we're still sort of a startup because it's different. And if you're different, particularly I find in Nova Scotia, you've got a lot of work to do. And that's not a pro, that's not a con, it's just the way we are, and it's our DNA. And so one day I pulled over on the side of the road about 2 years ago, and I pulled into the Agritech Park, and just so happened to meet Laurie Sanderson and Richard Ablett. And they told me about their vision of this new building at the Agritech Park. And I thought, well, and to be truthful, I was somewhat disgruntled of doing this in Nova Scotia. I was quite convinced PEI was in place. My preliminary meetings told me that perhaps I should head over the Northumberland Strait. Laurie and Richard said, no, we have a building coming here, this is the place that you should be, and boy was she right. And so I saw some slides 3.5 years ago of a system growing plants on multi-levels, so lights and nutrient systems, and everything was indoors, and it was 8 stories high, or 8 levels high. And I thought, that's the future. If you can figure it out, that's the way to do it. And knowing full well that working with specialists and surgeons and doctors, I've literally worked in every facet of health. I've just recently been on a health task force with the Jamie Bailey of the PC Party. I'm not a PC Liberal, and Jamie's a colleague and asked me to be on that panel because I think perhaps a little differently, and he wanted some different stuff there. And I've been on Mike Savage's health task force, and what I've learned is that we don't get it. And if you look at disease, and you know, some of you spoke today on your son and the shunt, and I've seen thousands and thousands of surgeries, was most where I spent my time. And what strikes me of our healthcare system is it's a disease system. You don't call it health, it's not health. Just get it right out of your vocabulary. It's disease, and we react to it. And I was on that side of the business. I worked as a distribution company for medical devices and so forth. And it's clearly, I thought, this is unsustainable. Like, we're just chasing our tail, right? So the Novartises and the Pfizers and the Johnson & Johnson and all of these companies got you right where you want them. And again, I was on that side of the business. So every article I ever read on a chronic disease, for instance, was eat fruits and vegetables. It's there, we just don't get it. And I sat on a panel for Capital District Health on food strategy, and that was really where the light bulbs went off. And I thought, wait a minute, I'm walking into Capital Health. You don't have anything to do with any knowledge of food. You're giving me, you got a Tim Hortons over here, you want me to get a double-double and a honey cooler, but you're telling me I got to eat better. Well, you're not showing it. And it was really just a moment where I thought, I got to get out of this business, because the future's in trying to reverse disease and avoid disease. And if you can get into reversing a disease and avoid disease, that's, we have no choice actually. So going back to the plants, I hired a few people a few years ago. I put a lot of my resources and energy and risk into this with a deep passion and commitment that I think we have. It's not because I thought it was visionary or anything. I did it because I thought we were going to be absolutely in a real pickle, and we're there. So the good news is, when you talk, Larry, you and I are talking about McDonald's sales are flagging, and the Ontario Medical Association coming out and saying, you know, tax fast food. We built our towns to create disease. So we built our civic society to be prolific disease generators, toxins in the air. We make it so that you don't even have to get out of your car. You just roll down your window and fast food comes in everywhere. And we don't even get it in our healthcare system. So how are you going to do it? So with True Leaf, perennia was critical. The Ag College connectivity was critical. I knew where I did not want to do it in Halifax for a whole host of reasons. And so can't really give you too much information. It's just successfully with perennia, we are on the verge of a very significant relationship with a very significant player of food in North America that gets what we're doing. It gets the fact that, you know what, the consumer is going to be more interested in how to reverse the disease and avoidance, and there's going to be no money left. We're okay at it today. In 10 years, in 15 years, in 20 years, I'm looking at the average age in this audience. It's not pretty, folks. If you get sick, I tell people all the time, you better start putting a little bit of money away in an account, so that when you get an acute illness, if you're struck, heaven forbid, with cancer, you're going to need a little bank account to get your rear end down to somewhere to get you real fast, because you won't want to wait, because if you wait, you'll die. And I'm seeing it time and time again in the Halifax system. I'm seeing it all over Atlantic Canada. I've worked in North America, Cuba, Caribbean, Europe. It's just, if you break your leg in Halifax, you're going to wait 3 hours. So the last bastion of good care was in emergency care. That's the last place, I think, where you're going to get it. And even those lineups now are getting chronically too long. So it's code red, and the only silver lining, I think, comes in what I call self-care. So that if you feel you're going to leave it to your system to help you with your care, you're making a really, really big mistake. What self-care is I'm going to take a little more information and pay attention to what I eat, to how much I move, to the environmental toxins in the air, the environmental toxins in my house, because nobody wants to live with a chronic disease. And although some people in the system will say the best way for the healthcare system is you die of a heart attack at the age of 50 because you don't cost us anything. Most people want to live to be 100 and then just die in your sleep. And how do you live to be 100? Nothing in our current system today, in my opinion, and look, I'm a little jaded, so I don't mean to offend anybody today of my thoughts on healthcare. I just think it's a serious issue. So ideally, I always think, well, the best way is to live to be 100, and then you kind of die. And then that's not a bad way to go. Everything we do in our civic society today, nothing prepares you to live to be 100. Overall, we build our cities to generate disease and so forth. So, and actually, to have a long, healthy life, it's really about food, which is why we started True Leaf. Good food. It doesn't have to be lettuce or anything, but it just has to be smart decisions on food. You have to move a little bit. And the other things about living a long, healthy life and longevity, there's a great book called The Blue Zone. Has everybody read The Blue Zone here? It's a great book. Researchers study people all over the world that live to be 100. And I encourage you, it's a fantastic read. And what you discover is that they studied all these centenarians all over the world, and they found that they all eat good food, they all eat a little bit, good food, they move a little bit, but then all this other stuff has nothing to do with medicine. Strong family relationships, strong faith, not religion, strong faith, and decreased stress. And when you're older in those countries that live to be 100, we don't put you in a senior citizens home, you actually live in the family home. And I was at an operating room in New Glasgow one day, I'll never forget. This physician, he was late 50s. I asked what he was doing, and he was assisting in the operating room. And he said, well, I get out of private medicine. I said, geez, you're at the pinnacle of your career. Why did you get out of public medicine? He said, I just get tired of warehousing seniors. And if you look at our current rate of how we handle senior care in the province, that's not too far from the truth. Senior citizen homes are fundamentally, sometimes you have no choice, although in the Europeans, they get it quite a bit differently than we do. And then they're medicated and medicated and medicated, and it's just, it's not the right way to do it. So, when we, going back to True Leaf, and I'm sorry if I ramble on a little bit here, but Truro was a gem, and I cannot tell you how much I've enjoyed my experience in Truro. Just the ability to drive on the street and I don't have to worry about paying a parking meter is such a treat. Halifax, they hide in the trees and the houses and under everywhere, and they give tickets like crazy. You have a great city here, and I've never experienced it before, and I apologize. Usually just pulling off the side of the road to get some gas or something to eat. And I've had a chance to look under the hood real deeply the last year, and I think you've got a real gem of a town here. And I think you have an asset. In our case with the Ag College, I look at the Ag College and Perennia, where we're at, as the Silicon Valley of plants. And I think you've got the potential to be the Silicon Valley of plants. Most investment today, energy, hedge funds, gold, food, sustainable food is one of the most attractive investment vehicles. And it's a great opportunity for Truro, and Perennia gets it, and we're just a young startup, but I can guarantee you we would nowhere near be where we're at if it wasn't for Truro and Perennia and Bible Hill and the Ag College. And I'm listening to what you're doing here, and on hospice, and I'll get to that in a second, because we have a lot of commonality. Jerry Seinfeld was on TV last week, I think it was 2 weeks ago on Jimmy Fallon. He had a great line. Jimmy Fallon said, well, what are you doing lately? He said, I'm just sitting home watching drug company commercials on TV, and then I watch the lawyers, suing the drug companies on TV. And, it's true. And I worked from the pharma medical device business for 20 years, and 5 years ago I just became absolutely total sick of it, because it's not a business built on serving you. It's a business built on donaros, money, greed, wealth. And it's built about how much I can extract from your public health care system. And I can tell you, I've seen everything, the good, the bad, the ugly. And personally, I have zero faith that our health system will repair itself. I have zero faith that we have the leadership or the political acumen or the system to fix it. And today we're at 60% of our total budget in the province goes to health care. 10 years, that's going to be up to 70%. Look at the youth. Higher rates of diabetes, blood pressure. Youth are even risk of stroke today. Obesity's well discussed. It's a huge freight train coming right at us. Take it on the other end, on the senior care. The demographics are a huge freight train in front of us. We are so ill-prepared, ill-equipped, it's not even funny. But it's a slow train wreck. It's every little day. You don't see it as an event or something that's happened. It's a very slow progress, and there's no happy ending. And what happens when our budget gets to 75% that goes to healthcare? What happens with crime prevention? Education. Boy, we're not getting education in this province. Where does the money go? Where does the money come from? Who's going to pay for these young kids that are with the high levels of cholesterol? How are you going to pay for that? I don't know how you're going to pay for it. Our solution, my passion, is to say, well, hey, what if beautiful lettuces and vegetables end up in elementary schools and the hospital systems. And you have the opportunity to purchase locally at a price that's the same as what we're currently going to displace from California. Again, that's the only way. There's no magic medicine. There's no magic pill that's going to solve our problems. And the other thing I recommend is don't be complacent. I heard a story one time about an elderly lady that broke her hip, was moved around to 3 emergency rooms in Metro Halifax because they didn't have any space. And by the time she finally saw a doctor, she was like, oh, thank you. And I'm like, no. It's not, oh, thank you, is, hey, wait a minute here. Why did you cart me around for 2 days? Left me in a hallway overnight? You gotta hold your leaders accountable on healthcare. Don't take anything for granted and don't be complacent. Whether it's Scott Armstrong or Lenora Zahn or whoever, your own primary family doctor, hold them accountable. Ask them questions. Because you know what? There's not enough accountability and transparency in healthcare. Zilch. None. Guarantee you. And if you ask me today of the physician groups in Nova Scotia, everybody a physician here, by the way? Before I go on that one. I don't think they're accountable. I think they're part of the problem. And they want more and don't want to repair the system and the structure that's created. So be accountable. I'm not allowed to go see my daughters. I have 2 young daughters, 12 and 15. They won't let me go in there with my daughter's doctor. Because every time I've gone in with my daughters with an earache or whatever, that lady physician cannot just write enough prescriptions. She's all loaded, ready to go. She's got the holster of the pad, and she's got the pens, and there's 3 or 4, and there's drug posters all over. And you ask her questions about anything besides drugs, and she doesn't have a clue. And I had a meeting one day with the Dean of Medicine at Dell. Really good fellow. I served on this panel with him. I said, Tom, how much are you training your medical students on food as a measure of health? It's virtually non-existent. Because the Pfizers of the world really got a hold of their med students about 20 years ago. It all started to happen. When I was getting in the medical device business, I started my first company when I was 23. I thought, wow, this is great. I'm making lots of money. I thought, wow, I'm really working hard. And I'm just really doing a good job. And I'm just studying, and this is great. Then he kind of looked under the hood, and he goes, this thing isn't really pretty at all. Doctors are using my product not because they like Greg Kerwin, because he's working hard. It's not pretty. And so how do you change it? It's not going to come from the system. It's going to come from you. It's going to come from places like the Rotary. It's going to come from places like Perennia, and maybe startups like Truly. I have this pie here. Let me just finish on the health thing for a second, because it's the only way I can clearly articulate what I'm doing here. So just bear with me. Just to spice it up a little bit. So this is healthcare today. Who likes pie?
Okay anymore.
So here's what I learned in my 20 years in consulting with everybody and government and so forth. So you're basically, every year we give you a ton of money, we give profits, and they go, here's the money for healthcare. And then certain groups take that big pot of cash, and then there's stuff left over for you and I. So here's the first, I don't have a knife, but bear with me. So the first cut, for a little fun, the first cut, well, these are the physician groups, and they like their pie. And you know what? They don't want a smaller pie. They want a slice of that pie, and that slice gets bigger every year because, as you know, they won't change thank you. They won't change the remuneration program. So they're on a fee-for-service, which is the most archaic program in the world. That pie, that slice has got to get bigger every year. We don't want to change it. Don't touch it. All right. So the next slice of all your money goes to unions, laborers, right? Who wants another slice? And so the unions, they like that slice, and they don't want to get any smaller, and it's not going to get any smaller. And what I've learned about physician groups and unions is in those groups, there's really, really, really good people that give a damn. But the really good people that give a damn are marginalized right away. Same in the unions. There's a senior care, cancer care nurse lady that I met with, and she said one day, the system makes good people look bad, and that's the truth. So you got the union groups, you got the physician groups, we're getting down there in the pie. So the other big one is the bureaucracy. So administration, Nova Scotia, we like a lot of administrators in our hospital system. You have probably 10 times too many, but you pay for that. So that slice of pie doesn't really get smaller either, and we like that slice of pie. And the final one, which is one that really got us into this pickle to begin with, is Big Pharma. Boy, we love our money. And we designed it so that we're going to extract every single dollar out of your pocket. And we've done it by being cozy with the physicians, cozy with the administrators, and we pulled off, and it's easy, it's taking candy from a baby. 5 years ago, I went to Capital Health, and I tried to develop a system to lower their cost on knee replacements and hip replacements by 20%. Efficient, blah, doesn't matter. It didn't matter at all. Nobody would listen, yeah, Big Pharma takes the money. So there's all your money. So here's what's left. These things right here, that's what's left to treat you. And guess what? Those crumbs are getting smaller and smaller. So going back to the healthcare piece, it's about whether or not we take responsibility. I think the silver lining is we're in such rough shape, and it's going to get worse, that as you as individuals, the internet is a great source to learn about disease. There's chronic disease social groups now that people are learning from each other. There's really good, I think, out of the negativity, I think there's some silver linings coming up. And I want my daughters to have the same level of care that we all received. And I think as the ultimate thing of our responsibility is to make sure the next generation has the same level of prosperity and access to health care. And I tell you, we are screwing over that next generation like no tomorrow. And
just an indication.
Oh, what's that?
It's going to be
oh, sorry. Okay. So hospice. Let me close with hospice. Real quickly, in the middle of all of this, my mother came down with leukemia 2 years ago, and I took a lot of time off and looked after my mother. She was 83, just an amazing woman. And we went through the system. It wasn't pretty. She passed away at the VG in a room that wasn't suitable for anybody. And it got me thinking about hospice care. So in closing, I heard today that you're involved in hospice, and I presented to a group of entrepreneurs in Halifax recently that we should start a hospice in Halifax because there isn't one. So we have a very developed group in Halifax right now working with the government and the Halifax Dartmouth Rotary Clubs on developing 3 hospices in Halifax Metro because we have none. And what I learned in our healthcare system is that we really do we do a great job when you arrive, when you're born, and we do a very, very poor job when you leave, when you pass away. Because the system isn't really focused on dying. So we have had great discussions with the Rotary in Halifax, Dartmouth. We're developing a fairly robust business plan on how to get these out there as quick as we can, because your hospitals, even your new one, is not a place for palliative care. It should be in a much different environment, and we've done a lot of research in North America on what a good hospice looks like. And you get a really good group here, by the way. One night I stayed overnight and I attended the Rick Mercer event at CEC recently. I forget exactly when it was, but I had a chance to meet with everybody on hospice, and you got a great group here. And I think, in closing, the message to the Rotary here is make that a big, audacious goal for yourself, because we need them desperately. And whether it's a 10-bed or an 8-bed facility here in Truro, I think it's great for something to hang your hat on, because even though you have a nice new hospital, I don't think that's the place to go. And in my case, my mother went through the VG, and we spent 3 nights in a hallway in a merge when she did need a merge. Educate yourself more on palliative care, find out what's going on in Truro, and see how larger role you can do with getting a hospice care in Truro, because it's the right thing to do. Thank you very much for your time.
Does anyone have any questions for Greg? Told you it was going to be fascinating. The interesting thing is I deal with Chinese clients, and a Chinese doctor pays to keep you well. Just thought they'd mention that in passing. At this time, I'd like to call on Lori to thank our guests.
Greg? On behalf of the club, I'd like to thank Greg Kerwin, CEO, President of True Leaf Agriculture. I wish you could sample his lettuces. I've had the benefit of sampling some, I forget what it was a dark red colored, it was a dark romaine actually, and the flavor, and apparently the shelf life of True Leaf lettuce is about quadruple the shelf life of anything coming from California. The stuff you buy in the store right now, you take it home and put it in your fridge. How long does it last? Not too long. So it's really exciting to have this startup company at the Innovation Center over in Beazley Hill. They're their first tenant in the new building. Really, really thankful. They're a perfect fit for what we want to do with the agri-food sector. And Greg is passionate. You've heard about his passion today for the health of our citizens. I think of the phrase, let food be your medicine and medicine be your food. And I think we really need to take note and pay attention to what we're putting in our mouths, and a little bit of exercise, a little movement, and thinking about our environment. So I really appreciate you coming and taking the time. And
Thank you.
A little mug, momentum.
I'd like Greg to make a comment on what he's doing in grade schools.
In grade schools, well, when my mother was ill with leukemia, I took basically a year off, and I was asked to help out at an elementary school on an entrepreneur project. It's a national program, and I thought, well, this is great. And so they paired me with a grade 3 class in the north end of Halifax, and a tough kind of part of town. And so what I did is we started off as a food program, a food project, and called it my Big Fat Greek Salad. And what we did with the grade 3s, and I would go into the class one afternoon a week, talk about, I thought my job was tough. I had a new appreciation for the teachers because I left there absolutely exhausted. And so so I thought these kids aren't going to get it. And I kind of talked to them about maybe we had talks on what bad ingredients are, good ingredients, and try to keep it simple and not tell them. And they really got it. And what surprised me was how quickly they got it and the questions grade 3 kids asked. So the project was my Big Fat Greek Salad, so we taught them how to procure the lettuce and the salads and sell it, and it was supposed to be a work project. But we made it into something broader, and ultimately met with the Department of Education and the school board to raise money to build a greenhouse. It's a little modular kit greenhouse that goes right by the school. And the kids love it. They want to learn how to grow it. They want to learn how to prepare it and cook it. And all of this thing on food should be just as equally as important as math, social studies, and so forth. And the school got it, and the parents got it, the PTA got into it, and we kind of messed up food with kids big time. And just so in Truro, we're interested in partnering with a couple of the local elementary schools to do the same thing, so that you make it part of their education, whether the fun is in learning it and growing it, and maybe that's what they want to do when they get older, or just getting them educated. And one good trick for kids is I brought in a Happy Meal one day. I read this from someone, and they all thought, great, we're getting Happy Meals. They were out of their minds. And I said, no. I said, if you think this is good food or bad food, if it's good food, we'll leave it here on the shelf for a month. And if it's bad food, it'll go bad. If it's good food, it'll be good news to leave, right? So who raised their hands, who all thought? So after a month, we all sat around a big circular table. It was about 23 kids, grade 3. And we opened up the bag, and it was still rock hard. The French fries were rock hard. The bun was hard as rock. And they were all grossed out. And I thought, they do get it. Even though they're grade 3, I don't think there's any age that does not start. So we'd like to do the same thing with Truro over here.
Thank you. If you ever wonder why your pita bread never seems to go stale, that's why. At this time, if there's nothing further, I'd like to call the meeting adjourned.